You know, every time I mentioned this player's name, my partner over there likes to run for cover, almost like an allergic reaction. You know, like somebody bringing peanut butter to school. You can't be doing that. But when I mention his name, look, he's already backed up from the camera. He's already backed up from the camera. But this time, brother, come close. Get nice and tight with me because Pat Brisson, Sidney Crosby could have easily shut it all down. Guess what? They didn't. Marco, let's react to the interview Pierre Lebrun had with Sidney Crosby, with Pierre Lebrun talking about the Montreal Canadiens, talking about speculation around Crosby, perhaps not being a one-team guy for the entirety of his NHL career. Where are you today on the likeliness that Sidney Crosby won't finish his playing career, as a Pittsburgh Penguin today?
The same I was the same I was
Come
last
on.
month.
Come
I'm not
on.
swayed. I'm not
Come
swayed by these
on.
comments. I've said it before and I'll say it again.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen his quotes get twisted by everyone. Like I saw a TSN tweet where they left out him talking about wanting to stay in Pittsburgh as their captain, only mentioned the part where he said it was nice to be so wanted by the Montreal crowd, and then proceeded to also omit the fact that he is focused on staying with the Pittsburgh Penguins and helping them make the playoffs. So like a part of me is like, part of this is fabricated and part of this is real. And the real thing is, the two real things we know. The Pittsburgh Penguins would likely love for their rebuild to eventually move on from Sidney Crosby so that they can really just tank it and finish in the basement of the NHL and get a double shot of McKenna and Landon Dupont, 2 drafts in a row, right? That would be great for them. But at the same time, there's legacy involved. The other thing to keep into consideration is the fact that you have Pat Brisson also saying that it would be an absolute shame if this would be the 4th year in a row without Sidney Crosby in the playoffs. I share that sentiment. I think Pat is spot on with that. But he is also the agent of the most decorated athlete of our time, like his generation. I'm not talking about, Wayne or anything like that.
Crosby's a Mount Rushmore hockey player for me.
Yeah, I think he's definitely number 4 for me on that list, and there's 2 Penguins on it, so like let's not get into that. But it is what it is when it comes to me being able to assess where he's going.
Yeah.
I don't think Sidney Crosby moves this season. This is where I say. If he moves, this is what would happen. This is the scenario I think would have to happen. The Pittsburgh Penguins would have to be utter dog poo-poo. Like, I mean, so bad that our dear sponsors, Little Bear, wouldn't even have a fix for them. Okay.
Not a poopy bag big enough.
Not a poopy bag big enough. Okay.
Right.
And I'm getting good at these plugs. And
very good.
When it comes to the overall mindset, they would have to be just bottom tier of the league, absolutely miserable. Pittsburgh would be selling off everyone, including Gino, with his permission, of course.
Of course.
There'd be nothing left in Pittsburgh to play for to finish off the season. And he's going into the summer. All his friends are gone. The team is clearly just tanking. They don't win the lottery, and you're just there. Right. And at that point, that's where I think the conversation can be real. There's only one outside element where I will say this. There's only one side situation where I would say that this could happen is if they go, again, Pittsburgh is not in a playoff situation by any stretch of the imagination. They go to Italy. They win the gold medal. He gets a taste again of what success looks like. And then he's got to take a plane back to Pittsburgh where he faces mediocrity on a regular basis and asks out. That's the only way that could happen. But I put that reality in the low 20%. Sidney Crosby is such a creature of habit. He's a guy that loves his what's the word here? He loves his routine. He loves his routine. He loves being able to, go through the motions. He loves the Pittsburgh. I just feel like, again, we talk about Montreal because Montreal's the easiest thing to talk about, right? And the question was asked to him directly about the Canadiens, not like he independently brought them up.
Correct.
So the thing is Montreal is a lightning rod for Crosby talk, and there is nothing going on right now in the hockey world. Zero other than the Carey Price trade. So this is going to obviously attract everybody's attention. I still believe that if made available, the Montreal Canadiens would be uber aggressive in trying to make it happen. Crosby will have to make a choice. I just do not see a world, my 2 cents, I do not see a world where it would make sense for the Montreal Canadiens to trade for Sidney Crosby and try to maximize the 2 to 3 years he has left when, in my honest opinion, they have not reached their window yet. So for me, the Canadiens would have to be a top 3 team in the Atlantic for me to start considering throwing in a first plus more than likely a Michael Hage, because that's what it's going to be a first prospect.
But hold on a second. Like Crosby, let me play devil's advocate. In the world that exists, right? Where first of all, Crosby couldn't have done the interview he chose to, and the strongest takeaway for me is the Penguins would trade Sidney Crosby if he went to them and asked for it. And I think Pat Brisson comes across to me as an agent who wants his client to go eventually and ask the team to trade him. But just to counter your point, if the Canadiens managed by some miraculous occurrence of events, get Sidney Crosby at any point this season, bro, they're a top 3 team in the Atlantic. That's how they become a top 3 team. I don't think they need to get there before they get 87. 87 automatically puts them there.
Are they there? Really?
Where's the hesitancy coming from? This guy is I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Because I feel like everyone, I think Crosby's an elite player. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But your window instantly dies the moment he retires. Then what? Then who's your 2C? Right? Well, then you're scrambling in the same problem you were in before.
Yeah, but you have more salary cap space. You have,
right, because Montreal is
haven't developed their trade chips.
Yeah, but what trade chips? You're going to have to trade your 2026 first. You're going to have to trade your top forward prospect to make this happen. And people that are like, no, it's not going to cost that much. Claude Giroux, with a full no movement clause, cost the Florida Panthers a first, and Owen Tippett, who was a young top 10 overall pick on their roster.
Yeah,
you best believe it's going to cost you something. So if you're I don't know, the Colorado Avalanche, you could throw a 2027 first, Gulyayev and any other type of prospect. Pittsburgh would love that.
Right.
The idea here is you are going to mortgage your future for a 2-year window. My 2 cents, 2 to maybe 3-year window. It would be really nice from a PR perspective. Yes. And I think it would be great. But then you better hope you win the cup in those 2 to 3 years, because then after that, his 2 to 3 years are up. You got to re-sign Nick Suzuki. You got to re-sign Cole Caulfield. There is a lot of moving parts here that you're going to have to contend with. And I feel like this is where things get a little tricky for me, is that on paper, just getting a guy like Crosby, fantastic. Absolutely. Exactly what the doctor ordered as a 2C for the future. Absolutely. If he were 35, run with it. Go.
Yeah,
everything.
I agree.
But he is 38 years old. Mm-hmm. You cannot expect this poor man to continue being supremely elite as he is into the later stages of his career, unless proven otherwise. And the other thing is that I don't know that he would be willing, or he would push to be traded to a team that isn't a 2-day guaranteed contender prior to his arrival. Sure. And I think that's the other thing to take into consideration, right? Why would he choose? Like, when I see this, and I'm like, yes, the Montreal Canadiens would obviously be close to heart. Yes. But the Canadiens will have to take a serious leg up this season to be the top team on his list, in my opinion, because he'll go, like, there's an easy deal to be made with the Colorado Avalanche, and he goes to play with his Timmy's buddy from Cole Harbor in Nathan McKinnon. Yeah. And his cap hit's locked in. And by the time his deal is done, Makar's deal is done, they could renegotiate based on that. They got a bunch of other guys signed long-term. We'll see what they do with Martin Necas. But at the end of the day, Colorado, to me, is the team that makes the most amount of sense. Sure. Because they are in a window with the players that they have. And they have to go for it. And they'll give them the moon. They'll give them 3, 4, 5 first-round picks. They don't care. But if they can get Crosby with McKinnon, they'll do it. And I just feel like on that end, I don't know if Crosby is going to leave the only team he's ever known. It's for cups. Can you honestly tell me that this current iteration of the Montreal Canadiens with Sidney Crosby is beating Florida in a 7-game series? I love you guys. I love Habs fans. I can't. Not today.
Bro, I watched the Columbus Blue Jackets beat the Tampa Bay Lightning in a playoff series. The law of averages suggests you're going to be right 90% of the time. But
I understand that.
But
you're not playing the Florida Panthers in the first round.
Nick Suzuki's a year older. Noah Dobson, Cole Caulfield, Lane Hudson, Demidov. Where's he at? Where's Slavkovsky at? These are all 25 and under players I'm talking about here that are already established.
I'm fully aware. But you cannot, in a rebuild, assume that everyone's going to have a linear track up.
Agreed.
And I think that's the thing. I think having a guy like Crosby, there's so many benefits. I'm talking about it from Crosby's perspective, right? If you're Crosby and you want to go to a place where you're going to win, and have multiple shots at winning, not just one perfect window, maybe in 2027. I'm talking now, because the Canadiens, I love them, but until David Reinbacher is a full-time NHL player, their defense is not contender level,
and that's next year. But that's next year.
You can't. It's next year if everything goes right.
Yes.
There's so many ifs when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens that it's if everything goes right. And I think that when you look at Crosby and that acquisition point, from Crosby's perspective, why would I want to go to Montreal if Colorado is willing to throw everything
out? How many times did he say it's his boyhood team? I'm not the romantic in the room here.
How many players in this league have said that the Montreal Canadiens are their boyhood team and chosen not to go there when there was a trade to be made?
Come on. That's not fair. This is a completely different regime with a completely different culture. This is a more organized, consistent management team than I have ever covered in my 20 plus years in terrestrial radio. For me, that's a fact.
I don't think that's a refutable fact. I just don't think that necessarily will make someone want to go somewhere on hope you need results.
Yeah, but don't you think pro athletes live in a world? And listen, I've never sniffed the pros, right? But the point I'm making is that sometimes these pro athletes live in a world where they believe that with me going there, this team goes from there to there.
Other way around, my homie. Every single athlete I've ever spoken to, every single one want to go to a good situation that's already sustainable before they even get there, so that they don't have to bring the team from here to here. The team's here and they're putting them over the top. Sure. That's the idea you want to go into. And Colorado fits that in the short-term window of his career far more than Montreal does.
Until Cale Makar decides to go back to Alberta, and then what? Yeah.
Cale Makar will get his 15-16 million. Don't you worry. The best thing to happen to the Colorado Avalanche is that the flat cap is over.
Yes. Listen.
One season of increase, and boom, all of a sudden you have enough money to afford Cale Makar.
Again, just to reiterate, Crosby, Four Nations experience, watching the crazy Tom Wilson, Josh Anderson at the Bell Center and the roof blowing off its foundation. Crosby watched all that stuff.
I'll say this.
Say it.
Do I think that there's a world where Crosby plays for the Montreal Canadiens? Yes.
Yes.
Do I necessarily think it's this year? No.
No, and the other consistent thing to that has been Crosby has mentioned that he's not going anywhere until Malkin is no longer a Penguin. Malkin's got 1 year left. Crosby's got 2.
Yeah, and if Malkin refuses to be traded at the trade deadline, which is his right.
Yes.
Correct. Right. So this is why I bring that into focus. The other thing I try to bring into focus is the Canadiens window itself, because again, you talk about free agency, you talk about trading for other assets, you're kicking the can down the line for a player that could really propel you into potential contender status. But the Canadiens are going to have the same problem they've always had since this rebuild, and this is the fact that their defense is not there yet. And to me, I think that David Reinbacher, or a bona fide top 4 right shot defenseman, has to come in and really be an impact player, and their bottom pair has to come in and not be a liability. When that happens, you could talk about these last throw of the die moves, and I just don't feel like Montreal is necessarily there yet. And like I talked about, let's see what happens throughout the season, because there's a lot of conversation to be had throughout the season about how things evolve. If everybody takes a step up, if you got more than one player on this team going a point per game this season, and Ivan Demidov is on pace to win the Calder, it's a very different conversation than what we're having right now. But I cannot make decisions today based on hopium. I have to make decisions today based on what I see. And based on what I see, the Canadiens are one of the hottest up-and-coming teams. But if you're a player like Sidney Crosby, you don't want to go to hottest up-and-coming. You want to go to established. And that to me, if I'm 38, I got 3 years left of this. I want to go to a team that's going to be assured in the playoffs, going deep every year, that is stacked at all positions. And to me, that's the Colorado Avalanche.
I think the Canadiens are a Sidney Crosby away from being the team you just finished describing. I think he's more likely to play for the Canadiens today than you and I had this conversation 2 weeks ago. I think the interview moved the goalpost for me. But
I think he's more likely to move than ever before.
Okay.
But I do not necessarily believe that he is the savior to Montreal's problems that a lot of fans are putting out there. Simply because, and I will say this, simply because I just don't think they're there yet. If we're having a different conversation in February, if this is a top team in the Atlantic, they are going toe-to-toe with the Panthers, with the Leafs, with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they have just left everybody in the dust and completely taken not one but two levels of upgrade, we're having a different conversation. But today, there's a lot of ifs that have to get into that. There's a lot of things that you have to worry about. And then you also have to think about, well, what happens after the fact? Because then you're going to be in the same situation you are now, when there's going to probably be 34 teams, not 32, and you're going to be looking for another top six center when there's already none available in today's market. So, you're going to just be kicking the can down the line if you do not convert on winning the Stanley Cup with Sidney Crosby. So it would be magical, but there are some risks involved and a lot of ifs.
You know what, brother? You're magical. You're magical. This has been fantastic. You can support us by supporting our sponsors at Little Bear, littlebearonline.com. Delivery to your doorstep. Summer months are more or less over. Out come the cold, crisp mornings and the cold, crisp evenings. You don't have to leave your house. You can watch D'Amico and Starr on YouTube.com and have your pet's needs delivered right to you, thanks to Chuck and his all-star staff at Little Bear, littlebearonline.com, with monthly long specials. Check them out online because they change regularly. In-house shopping, of course, is always encouraged and cannot be beat because their staff cares about your pet as much as you do. You can find them on St. Catherine and Westmount across from Alexis Neon Plaza or online at littlebearonline.com. Marco, always fun to engage, especially when we talk about Sidney Crosby.
I will say this, and I will say this to everyone right now. If Sidney Crosby gets traded to the Montreal Canadiens, I'll be the first one to applaud. I'll be the first one to say, great job. Yeah. But if you're Sidney Crosby, unless the Colorado Avalanche take a deep step back and the Canadiens take a massive leap forward, I think he's always wanted to play with McKinnon, and I just have a feeling.
I got a feeling. All right, brother. Thanks as always. Good stuff. Check Marco out at MN D'Amico and read all the latest with RG, rg.org. Thank you, sir. We'll see you again next week.